Hey everyone, today's story revolves around a relationship where a prank goes too far. What happens when a girlfriend's idea of fun crosses a line, leaving her boyfriend feeling deeply hurt and triggered? Let's dive into whether their concerns are justified or if they should be more understanding in this tricky situation. I've, 22M, been with Nicole, 25F, for a couple of years now, and she's always liked survival stuff, weaponry, and all that. I absolutely don't, due to really bad experiences with knives when I was younger, and Nicole knows about them. We both love Halloween, and usually throw a party, dress up, goof around, cook pumpkin seeds, and watch movies. Nicole loves doing tricks with her knives, like five-finger fillet, flicking it open and closed, twirling it, etc. She'll do it when we're watching a show or movie together, forgetting that I've asked her to please not do it. Or she'll buy a new knife, show it off, and ask if I want to give it a try, pouting when I say no. 2 days ago, she was playing with it again, and I asked her why she keeps forgetting. She said, "Wow, okay, don't insult my intelligence again." And then that it was just a knife, and therefore not a big deal and not that important to remember. After that, she put away the knife, and we continued to have an okay night, but I was on edge and jumpy whenever she touched me. Yesterday, she called me into the kitchen, where she was playing five-finger fillet. I startled her, and she messed up badly. I lost my cool, screamed my head off, and tried shouting what I knew about first aid at her while I raced to grab my phone, completely panicking and dialing 911, only for her to start laughing and show me that it was a prank involving red food dye and a carrot. She had a nice laugh about how I would have known it was a joke if I wasn't so squeamish about knives and that it was proof I needed to get more comfortable. She kept explaining how she did it, how she practiced, and how she could show me, but I didn't even answer her. It was like my head was underwater, and my heart was beating out of my chest. I just moved on autopilot, grabbed my keys, and drove a few blocks away before pulling over to breathe. Nicole tried to call me, and the first thing I said was that it wasn't funny at all, and she asked, "Are you crying?" Then I hung up on her. She kept texting me, saying she was sorry, that she didn't think I'd react so badly to a joke, that it was just meant to be good fun in the Halloween spirit. I ignored her. I texted her after that I was home, but ignored everything else. This morning, she sent a picture of the props to the group chat with a few of our mutual friends, and they chimed in, saying it doesn't even look real. I've muted the chat since, and am wondering if I have a leg to stand on before I go back and apologize. Just snip me right then, since I didn't want to have kids with her, and then held me as I sobbed because I went into a panic. I didn't want her touching me, but I didn't know what else to do but let her, and to apologize to her. Another time, she put the knife to her own throat during a fight and said I clearly wanted her to kill herself. She didn't stop until I screamed at her, begging her to stop. Sometimes when driving, she'd start speeding and swerving or closing her eyes while on the highway, saying my fear meant I didn't trust her. Nicole just kept getting worse by the day. I remember waking up one morning with a moment of clarity. I knew she'd eventually kill me. I was sleeping next to my murderer. But even that realization wasn't enough to push me away. Escaping her orbit seemed like too much, more than I could handle. Everything I had in me was focused on just surviving day to day. I never knew if she'd break up with me on a whim, pick a fight, or push me closer to a panic attack. Every night felt like Russian roulette. Any word or action could trigger her. She tossed out my antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication one night, and then during the resulting argument, she made a big show of forgiving me for raising my voice. I shouldn't have done that, and I have no excuse. Then she helped me call in an emergency refill. For weeks after, because I said I wanted to break up during the argument, she would ask if I was going to try to run away every time something went wrong. A takeout order, a spilled cup of water, a streaming service not working immediately. "Oh, don't get your panties in a twist and run off," she'd say. "Do I have to worry about you leaving me over this mistake too?" Eventually, that tapered off, but maybe once a month during a fight, she would tearfully go to our friends and ask them to mediate. Then, during the meeting, she'd say that I kept threatening to leave her again over nothing, and how scared she was of losing me when she didn't know what set me off. More than a few times, she showed me texts from them where her friends were saying how she deserved better and didn't need to put up with me, but she'd tell me, "I don't listen to them because I love you anyway." She'd slap me and push me during arguments. I could never do anything right because even doing what she wanted without argument or not looking her in the eye could be enough to send her off the rails. Sometimes, as a joke, one of our friends would pull out a little pack of tissues and hand it over to me in case I'd run out, or make a production of hiding the butter knife at dinner under the napkin. It was humiliating, but if I spoke up, suddenly I was oversensitive, an embarrassment, no fun, and I had to learn how to deal with adult friendships and jokes. They'd ask her how she could stand it. As a result, I didn't spend much time with them either. Usually, Nicole would just go out with them, and I'd stay home, which was the most relaxing time I had during that period, except for when she started randomly coming home without any notice or timeline. She'd say she'd be home at 6 but then not come back till midnight or early morning, or say she'd be gone until 10 and come back early at 2 or 3. Or she'd randomly call the house phone to make sure I was home and get angry if she even thought I sounded breathless, accusing me of having left. She started hinting that marriage would be the logical next step and that I was insulting her by not having proposed yet. Then she bought an engagement ring with my credit card and started showing off to all her friends how perfect my choice was. I didn't want to marry her. I felt bad for not wanting to marry her. I wanted us to be happy, and maybe giving her the wedding she wanted would help. I didn't want to marry her. In all those months, I never went to sleep feeling safe. I lay awake in bed, hyper-aware of how close she was, and trying to go over in my head if I had behaved well enough to keep her happy, and what I could do to prevent another explosion. In hindsight, it's sickening how long I let this go on. In the moment, it was just about all I could think to do. I often woke up with nightmares, which would, in turn, piss her off and set her off in a mood for the next day. But if I suggested sleeping separately, she would rage about how I was calling her a shitty girlfriend, fiancé, etc. I started to keep a notebook at work, writing down things she'd done or said, incidents, and what I'd done to set her off. It helped me feel more sane and also more like because I could read back on times she actually hurt me, and I still hadn't left. Every time I thought about leaving, I felt sick inside. I'd lose every social contact I had. I would have to find a new place to live. I'd have to bar her from my workplace. But they couldn't do anything without a restraining order, and that itself felt like a hurdle too. I dropped all my old friends in favor of her and felt like they'd refuse to even talk to me again. I was the idiot that let her back into my life and rekindled the relationship despite overwhelming feedback. I was stupid enough to deserve every bit of what was happening and too dumb to deserve to escape after wasting my previous chances. I hated myself and had frequent fantasies of just ending it all. The worst part wasn't the anxiety and terror, though. It was when she was sweet and caring. For example, she always went all out for my birthday, anniversaries, or Christmas with thoughtful gifts, except for the year where she kicked me out for the evening after throwing some decorations at the wall because they stopped working, for which she blamed me because I put them up. She was sweet and gentle one day, or even for a week or two, only to slowly start ramping up the tension until she exploded yet again. She had an uncanny ability to blame me in ways that made me feel responsible for her emotions and for forcing her to react violently. When we drove out to visit my dad for Easter, things started to change. Dad was concerned about how quiet I'd become and that I hadn't come for Thanksgiving or Christmas or even called on New Year's like I used to. He noticed that I looked tired, unhappy, and thin. Nicole was on her best behavior the whole time and even left her knives in the car. She even tried to get everyone to focus on the engagement ring, but Dad still saw something was wrong. For 3 weeks after, he kept trying to contact me, but she wouldn't let me talk without her in the room. She checked my phone anytime she left me alone and checked the records online to see if I had deleted any calls. Eventually, I managed to get a burner phone and hid it at work, which allowed me to talk to my dad freely. He flew over with my uncle, and they helped me gather my stuff from her house. When Nicole started sobbing and begging me to stay, my uncle kept her from the kitchen knives and had his phone ready to call 911 if she tried to hurt herself or us. When Nicole started to insist I was taking her stuff too, even though I was only taking things I either brought with me or bought for me, I just let it go. She got to keep a few sentimental items of mine, and the loss still hurts, but the most important ones I was able to take, like my documentation and cards. I didn't even bother with the ring, it was just money, and she was already acting up. Uncle drove my car home while Dad had me fly with him. I'm ashamed to admit that the months directly following the breakup were almost worse than the time I spent with her because I was out of survival mode, and I couldn't force myself to function the way I used to. I felt like a parasite on my father, unable to get my cult together, falling apart over nothing, being so volatile it frightened me. I'm in therapy again. Sometimes I feel better, like I can see a way forward, but then I feel like I'm back in the thick of it, and I'll never go back to normal, that I'm permanently broken. Worse, every time I cry or get triggered or have a flashback, I can still hear her voice in my head, calling me over-emotional and too sensitive, saying I'd be fine by now if I just got over myself, that what I went through wasn't that bad. She sent mail to my dad's house for a while, threatening letters, pleas for me to see reason and stop overreacting, pictures of us that were meant to be sentimental guilt trips. At first, I couldn't get a restraining order right away against her because I moved, something about the jurisdictions and courts, but when she sent those letters, it helped at least make sure she couldn't continue to contact me. I found my old laptop a while back, which had several important photos and a backup of my old social media profiles, messages, and contacts. I felt confident enough to try to make amends and repair the damage I'd done. 2 or 3 old friends were willing to talk to me again, but I have a long way to go before I can even think of fixing my relationships with most people. I have to think carefully about what I say to them because I can still hear her voice and wonder if I've truly let go of her control. I'm even more guarded about dating and don't think I'll be in another relationship anytime soon. I'm not ready. If you found this story moving or it resonated with you, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the bell icon for more stories like this. Your support helps us reach others who might be going through something similar. Thank you for listening, and remember, you're not alone.